Hi guys, I'm back again. We are on day number 9, which is called Wet on Wet. Pickles is here because out of all my animals, she's the one who hangs out with me the most. She's playful and fun. I hope you have some animal that you love or some, I don't know, comfort at your house. Okay, let's do this. Day number 9, Wet on Wet. I've already talked about it in previous videos. It's like my favorite technique. It's probably my favorite way to paint. And a lot of times you'll see there's different ways we could be doing things, and I'm choosing the wet on wet way. For example, the pumpkin we did earlier, we could have done that through glazing. Instead, I did it wet on wet. It's what I love. It's what I do. So I'm excited to teach you this one today. Supplies for today, I'm going to bop through them fast again. Here's our paints. And this is all linked below as well. Some kind of a towel and water. This is as far as I have my water filled up. You're going to need a brush. I teach from one that is a size 10 round Winsor & Newton watercolor brush. That's the kind I like. Any kind of pencil, because we don't worry about that too much here. I've got a kneaded eraser. I do get particular about my eraser. It's so funny. But it's a handy one to have. Do we need a felt tip pen? Hold on. I don't think we need it today. Let's see. No felt tip pen. We are going to need a 3" by 3" piece of watercolor paper, or you can just do this on any size paper that you've got. And I always like to say you can just kind of like repetitively do lots of these to practice this technique, and that's how you improve, is by doing the same thing over and over again. We have got our little printables. Wet on Wet, day 9. This is the one we need for today. If you don't have it, I'm going to read it to you anyways, so you're all set with that. This is our calendar that we're using to kind of mark off where you're at for the month. Look at all those. It's starting to add up. We're getting there, you guys. What else? If you've got a candle, if you've got a hot cup of tea, or your favorite drink, or maybe candy. I feel like candy in the fall, like fall candy is my favorite candy. You know what I mean? Like those Werther's caramels, like those chewy. Come on. Okay. Candle is lit. I love a good candle. It's such like a cozy environment to give for yourself. And I should talk about what we're painting today. I didn't actually grab it ahead of time. I was so excited to get Pickles on the video with us. My cutie little cat. One. It's colorful. It's cute. You have soft blends, lots of colors, plus details on the top. This is going to be a fun one today. So let's do it. Day 9, Wet on Wet. We don't need our brush right now. We can kind of move some of this out of the way. And we're going to begin by just sketching, but actually we're going to begin by observing. Okay. I love this one so much. Observation-wise, these are cactuses or cacti, I betcha. And they are made up of sort of like rounded things with straight portions in them. It's this combo. There's spaces where we can see sort of straight lines, and then there's spaces where the curves are either wide or tighter, just depending on where we're at. Like this is a tight curve, this is a big round curve. But within that, we find these straight lines, and I think that's always helpful to try to just figure out where do you see straight lines at, and I'm just pointing at a whole bunch of them. Maybe they're not perfectly straight, but thinking of them as straight is gonna help us get the shape that we wanna see onto our paper. And we've got some large ones. They basically go large, and then they get a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller as they go. And I wish cactus actually looked like this. Wouldn't that be actually amazing? I mean, listen, they're good how they are, but this would be so cute. So to start our sketch today, we're going to try to find, here, let me try to straighten out this camera. Okay, we're going to try to find center. Center is about here. This is just on my 3" by 3" square. So if this is center, right to the right of it, I want to put maybe a dot. I've got about a pencil width right here, and I can put a dot on the other side. So here's center, a dot, space for about a pencil, and another dot. What we're doing is marking out where this first one is going to go. So let's also put a mark here, and I'm thinking that might be right at center, top to bottom this time. Love it, but it's a little bit over to the right. So something like this. The most important thing I will say today is to press lightly with your pencil. If you press lightly with your pencil, you can erase easily, which means you can sketch freely. I don't know why I say it that way every time, but it works. We're going to start to, like, we can put a dot where we want it to go on either side if you want. You can have 4 dots before you even get this line in. We do want to account for what else do we need to fit in here. There's something over here, this pink one, plus a space, so we can't get too far. Let's just start to begin, but with light on your pencil. So coming out to this dot that you marked, curving it with a tight curve here, more of a straight line, tighter curve at the top. And now this is kind of a big curve, really. It's tighter curve at the top than the bottom, but I think we could even kind of come up and then curve it up here. Just press lightly. We'll have time to adjust, don't worry. And that's great, that's a really good start. Let's actually put this one in here, this pink one. It doesn't go quite as high. If I put my pencil down here again and I put it at the top of the pink one, there's about a pencil width between the top of the pink one and the top of this one. So that just gives me the indication that, like, it's gonna come a little bit lower. That's all we need. Maybe we'll put a dot where it's going to curve and a dot where we want it to start, and we'll just connect them. A little bit of straight line, curve, kind of a curve here. You can even give it like a curve at the top. That's all we needed. And even if we don't like this, we'll move those too. So light on that pencil. These two touch. I love it. We can use sort of a negative space to help us figure this out. Look at this triangle. Lovely. If I even draw that triangle like this, that is going to show me that that's where this one's going to start to live. Look at this line. It kind of goes 45-degree angle here. And I hope that you're starting to see all I'm doing is observing and then saying out loud what I am observing. Let's put another dot at the bottom. This one gets pretty tight. And this is a nice curve like this, like a finger, right? So I'm going to take it like this, give it a nice curve like that. It's like a tall, skinny rainbow, okay? And about here, it curves back down. Yours doesn't have to be this same shape. Like yours doesn't need to be identical. So you're learning how to draw what you see. And if you don't want to draw what you see and you want something similar to it, just start kind of just going with your gut and trying to get them on there. One more here, and I think setting up the bottom just really helps us for the top. We'll put a dot where we think it's gonna end and begin. Maybe it comes out here and kind of has a wider curve here, and we'll start to connect them. Awesome. Anytime we do a sketch, I think the beginning is the hardest because you don't have any other guidelines. But once you start to get these on, now you've got clues all along the way. This one is like a lump, very similar to that one. Look, it's the same direction, and it's basically the shape of the end of your pinky finger. Anything like that that you can say that helps, you know, it helps. You're giving your brain little clues along the way. I love the idea of learning to sketch is learning to see. Got it. Great. Let's see. What if we do this one? Because we've got the edge of the paper to work with. So come all the way over like this for a second, okay? It starts here. It only comes about this high. You're guessing on the height, and that's okay. And it's almost like straight over here. Nothing's exactly straight on these, though. Oh, it can be straight, but we don't want edges. We don't want points here. So, and honestly, why don't we just put this little one in while we're here? Great. Now we're off to a good start. We have the two sides already completed. I really like this one. For some reason, he's sort of like, he's right in the spotlight, right? He kind of draws your attention to him. So let's put some marks. It's kind of small at the bottom. It's going to have sort of a straight part here, curve at the top. Okay, so like that's wonky, but that's just guides that I can use. I'm going to curve it up to here, change that curve a bit, and scoop it back down. Okay, so anything that you're like, okay, I get this curve, put that curve on there first. And then we'll do a little one over here. I think you're starting to get it by now. And these smaller ones feel, if anything, they're easier to erase if you don't like them. So just pop them on there. And now we've got 1, 2, 3 more. These look like Easter eggs to me for some reason. They're not, but whatever. Let's look at this space in between. I could almost fit like a rectangle in here with a little triangle at the bottom. But that's kind of cool. That shows me that if I go this way, that's a good start. Let's look at this other space here. Wider at the bottom than it is at the top. None of that matters exactly. It's just if it helps you, take a look at it. And we're just going to get this one in here. Make sure you get some straight parts. I think that's really helpful. All right. How you doing? Take a sip of your beverage if you need it. Relax in your chair. We're almost done with the sketch. You got this. Right here, I got another one. I want to make it higher than the green one. So though these aren't exactly the same anymore, that's okay. I'm just going to sort of round it out over here. Make sure there's a straight part in it somehow and curve it back. And then a little one up top. Don't make them too tiny. If you make them too tiny, the thing is, we're working with a brush in a minute and you got to fit that in there. So the tinier they are, you know, it's a little bit trickier later. When you know you're sketching to do watercolor painting, if you can think about that ahead of time, it's helpful. You might make small changes. Okay, I'm lightening up my pencil anywhere that it just got kind of real, you know, dark or thick, or like, I want one line, not exactly two. So you can do that now if you want to. And like I've said before, I'm never bothered by pencil lines, so that is personal preference. I like it. This is cute. Now, all I'm doing is going in and just adjusting any shapes that I want slightly different. And I think I like it the way that it is. I'm going to start to move on. If you're not finished with this, just go ahead and pause it for a minute. We will start to mix colors. Now, this is going to be fun because this is like Easter colors, I feel like. You know, those little pastel colors. I like them. I'm going to get my water jar nice and close here. And we're just going to start. So what we need to know about wet on wet. Did I even talk about it? Did I even read to you about wet and wet, you guys? Okay. Wet on wet. Place a layer of light colored wet paint, then load in darker colors. Use less water after the first layer. As long as it's still wet, you can play. Honestly, I think this is an important technique to remember. I'm going to just say it again. Place a layer of light colored wet paint, then load in the darker colors, right? So that makes sense because we work light to dark, okay? Use less water after your first layer because you already have paint on your paper. And as long as it's wet, you can still play. So pay attention to what's happening as it dries, and you can continue to change it, which is really awesome. Sorry, we didn't read this earlier. Okay, we got it now. So that means that when we look at this and when we observe it, we're looking at the background layer first. We're going to take off all these dots and checks and X's. All of those don't matter now because that is the process of glazing, which we learned yesterday, right? We learned that yesterday. Glazing is just a layer on top of another dry layer. And so we're going to look at those pastel colors in the background. Those are what we're mixing up right now. So we don't want to get too dark is the point of this. And remember that in order to get your colors lighter, you add water. So don't go too nuts on the paint. We will make sure we've got enough water in them so they stay light. I'm dipping my brush into the water. Let's start with yellow. I like to grab lighter colors first because your water is going to get kind of dirtier as you go. It's just nice to kind of get your puddles made first. Something like this. So I put my brush into the water, swirled my brush around on my paint and swiped it onto my palette, went back into the water and back so that this is a puddle. Okay, this needs to be able to move freely. These are puddles. On the right side, they are paints. What did I forget to do? Just like always. It's weird. Like, I think I should just give up on doing this sooner. Maybe this is just when we do it. Okay, we got yellow. Great. I'm going to clean out my brush by pressing into the bottom of my jar. Press, press, press. Okay, we're going to get into orange. Let's just do that because it's next. And we want kind of a pile of pastels. That's already kind of dark. I will clean the pigment out of my brush and add water. Lovely. Great. I'm going to clean my brush out again and now decide what else. some kind of red or pink. I'm going to do red plus water to get my pink today. Just as a reminder that red plus water equals pink, and that you don't always have to use the one on the top left, because if you're like me, you'll run out of that one, you know? Okay, I've got orange, I've got yellow, I've got pink. I want some kind of a purple. I'm going to grab some of that. So I'm taking a wet brush, swirling it around on my paint, and swiping it onto my palette. I'll take that brush and go into my water and back, and that is a puddle. If it's too dark, clean the pigment out of your brush and add water. Okay, you're doing good. Now, I think we got 3 or 4 more colors. I think I see some light green, some darker, like teal, some blue, and then let's go from there. So light green, if you've got this set, the one on the top center is kind of perfect for this one. Plus add your water to get it light. Clean your brush in between. All right, some blue. We're going to get into blue next. So I have to pre-record these videos to get ahead of you guys. And so I haven't gotten feedback yet from the day 1 videos. So if you've been saying something since day 1 that you're like, I wish she would just do this, don't worry, I'll hear your feedback soon enough and I'll start to adapt. Okay, I've got this. I want teal. I love on this watercolor set in particular, if you start at the top center and go down 4, that is a blue that has a little bit of green in it. And if you start at the bottom right and go up 4, that is a green that has a little bit of blue in it. And if you mix them together, it can either look like emerald because you have more green in it, or if you add more blue, it'll look a little bit more like teal. Just get it to where you like it, and then probably add some water to lighten it up. I think we're about ready here. Just added another yellow since we've got 2 of them. And then you'll be able to mix these as you go as well. I'll do any colors you want on this background. If you want other colors here, go for it. If you want some neutrals, I could suggest add a brown in here, or other greens. You might get into, you know, cactuses are green. If your cactuses are all going to be green because you don't like any of this pastel nonsense, then get a bunch of greens today, and that's great too. And also this one at the top center, right below that lime green. So second one down, that's like a navy blue. And I really like how that sort of gives you a little more of a neutral too. So now I got all the puddles, and that's awesome because that means we can play with them. So on this first layer, we really do want to work from puddles, not paints over here. So just kind of keep that in mind. We want these to be ready, and I think that means we're all set. So let's do this. Okay, I'm moving that out of the way. We'll zoom in a little. And what we're going to do, and I'll show you, I would say let's kind of work together today, but if you want to just watch me do one first, it might be handy. So I'm going to grab this light green paint, and since you can't see me grab my paints, I'll just tell you. And I'm going to take my brush. I got half of my brush is full of paint, and I'm going to take my brush and run the tip of my brush along the edge of this one like this. I leaned into the belly of my brush, so I filled that in somewhat quickly. I'll now take my brush and I want to grab some of this teal color. I'm going to add it right to it and let the colors touch. I'll clean out my brush now and kind of dry it on my towel just a little bit. And if I want to blend these together, I can. Wet on wet is loading 2 different colors in at the same time and playing with them, right? So we said place the layer of light colored wet paint and then load in darker colors. I started with my lighter color. I went to this one next, but now if I want more, I can load in. I had to start with the light, but you see that? I just added 1 more color. And at some point, you just want to let it be. If you want to see a bunch of these tie-dye looking things like this, you're going to want to like drop in your color. Let me do it again. Drop in your color and let it be. You see how it's starting to move like that? If I took my brush and blended it now, it would go sort of seamlessly from dark green into these other colors, but I wouldn't get those sort of tie-dye markings, and I love them. This one is more of a seamless transition. I would say just play with this, all right? So this is layer number 1. That's wet on wet, okay? I could have done the whole thing this light color and then touched it with a darker paint. Instead, I put it next to it, but wet on wet. Start with your light colors. You can load in darker colors. So what we want to do now, so in watercolor, if I were to paint this next, my colors would bleed. This bled, I must have done it when it was a little wet still. I like a little bit of a bleed, so what I want to do is kind of paint here, and then before this is fully dry, paint that one. So let's try it. This one's got orange and purple, so I'm going to grab a little bit of orange. Now remember, when these are smaller, you need to grab less paint from your puddle in the first place. Somehow you have to limit your water. You can touch your brush to your towel if you want help with that to start. I'm going to fill in the left side of this. So for wet on wet, I mean, it's in the name, right? But it's got to be wet. If it's not, your colors are not going to blend. Great. They touched, so I have more of a brown color. So I'm just going to intentionally grab some sort of straight purple and add some of that to the side. So it's just the fact that we can let these two colors bleed together. I can load in other colors. I can load wet paint into wet paint. And I think I'm going to leave it. I guess I'll just show you what we could do. Just touch a little bit of yellow into that as well. So remember, on this card, how we say, as long as it's still wet, you can play. So if this isn't wet yet and I look back at it and I want to change something, I absolutely can. But I want to go here before this is fully dry. So I cleaned out my brush. I'm going to grab some paint. Remember to limit it because this is small. And I will fill in this one with blue. I'm going to touch it here, hoping it's a little bit wet still, but not worrying about it. If you put your paint on this first layer and it's puddling or pooling, remember the trick of lifting from our day 4 video and how you can just clean your brush, dry your brush, and touch it here and lift up excess paint. I'm going to add a darker blue to the edges. And in a minute, I'm going to let it be. Maybe a little bit of teal. Done. Okay, you can move it around and blend it on your own if you want to. That's just personal preference for each of us now. I really hope you guys share this one, so I'm going to just mention it now. Hashtag Audrey's Art Club is how you can share your work, and people can search it through that hashtag and see each other's work. But also on my Facebook page, I have this, what do I call it? Paint and share. And you can share it there as well. And it's just so fun to see everybody's work. I just think these are going to be beautiful. I'm moving on to this one over here. So do you notice most of the time we would dry these because we don't want them to touch. But now I kind of want them to be just slightly wet if we can do it. And I'm cleaning my brush out and grabbing the pink color for the top. And if they are a little bit wet, we'll get little soft color bleeds. If you're losing control right now, you have too much water. If your colors are not blending at all, you don't have enough water. Oh, this one's like cotton candy. It's good, isn't it? I hope you're loving how yours look too. So I've got these 4. I'd say let's just keep going up so we maybe do get some of these cute color bleeds. So I'm going to get into my pink, my, red plus water, and do this one. I'll fill it in and I'll sort of touch it here last. See how it brought some blue in? If I have too much water, remember you can lift. And then I just touched into my red paint. I want some darker red on the sides. And I do think it's very effective to touch, like dab it, but watch your edges that you don't get like really uneven edges. Remember, the tip of your brush running along the edge is what gives you a smooth line. And we're doing great. I'm going to go over here with yellow. And I'm going to fill it in. And to do the wet on wet, I've got wet paint. I'll touch it, I think, with some orange. Wet paint into wet paint. That's our wet on wet technique. I can grab another color at any point. Mix up another color at any point. You can mix from your puddles and start to get more colors than what you created. And now I'm going to leave that one. So this is a good time to just get this little guy in here. You just want it to stay so that each one is mostly a different color than the one next to it. But those color bleeds are so pretty. I mean, that's part of why we love watercolor. And then I'm going to come back over here and do this one. Sometimes it's safer if you paint the whole thing first and then touch it at the end. But I do want one more color into that. So get a little bit of something else. Like that, and that feels good. Are you starting to see it come together? I love this one. Okay, so here we are. Since we've got those two done, you know, you can take a breath, relax your shoulders if you need to. Take a drink of whatever beverage you've got going. I'm trying to sip quietly if I take a drink so that I don't bother anybody who has, like, is that called misophonia or something? I'm going to get into yellow and start down here. The next thing I'll do is touch orange into it. So yellow down here. Kind of remaking my orange puddle real quick because it ran out. I'm going to fill in the top and then touch it. So all along the way, you're trying to think, do I have enough water? Do I have too much water? Enough paint? And that's part of figuring out watercolor, is just the practice of it. And let's do this one on the other side. And that's just us kind of, remember, going back and forth so that they'll dry a little bit. So some of these are just actually one color, but because we're practicing wet on wet, I say let's try to get a little bit of another color in there. So I'm going to get a little bit of purple. You'll learn. Some colors make brown. Like I had some brown here, but I liked it. I like when things get neutralized as long as they're balanced with other color. So I wouldn't worry about that much. I'm coming up here. I'll do yellow first and add red towards the bottom. So I think that reds, blues, purples can kind of take over. So I like to kind of get the lighter color starting to dry into the paper, just a hair, if that makes sense. And then I'll add and let it touch. Ooh, that one's pretty vibrant. A little more vibrant than the rest. So I've cleaned my brush and dried it real quick, and I'll just lift some of it off. I just didn't want it to be like way bolder than everything else. Let's come over here with our light blue. Make sure you're replenishing your puddles as needed. I'll touch some green into that. I love the softness of these. There's like no pressure on them. They're just chill. This is like my favorite kind of painting. If I needed, like, I'm really stressed out and I just want to go paint, this is the kind of thing I just want to watch paint and water play together. Okay, a little bit of this sort of teal color here. And we do want to just try to get one more color into it. I'm going to get that navy blue. I hadn't really used it much. And since I wanted more navy blue, I just really quick looked what's not dry yet. And that was this one. So I added more into that. Okay, I don't know if that felt chill or you felt like you just finished a race. But once you learn these techniques, you can just sit there and do a whole page of them and let yourself sort of get comfortable with the technique and get more familiar with it. Love this bleed right here. And I also love these softness. So hopefully you just got some cool effects. Okay, we're going to take a dryer to it real quick just to be sure, because let's say you think it's dry and you start these will look fuzzy on top. So I can test it like this. If you see the light reflecting, and I do, that's how you know it needs to be dried. A reminder that your paper is going to bend sometimes, and it's just because it had to absorb a lot of water. So see how mine's pretty curved? You can take it and gently roll it backwards. Just don't bend it. And that gets you a long way. The more water they have to absorb, the more they'll bend. And that's why watercolor needs, like, it's more picky about the paper for that reason. Okay, we're going to look for a second. This, we're just observing. Get back in there. This has tiny designs on top with more concentrated paint. So we need less water for more control, remember that. And usually we say light to dark, but I wanted to show you, this is not really light to dark. There's purple and there's like an orange on top. So you can see that it's a little bit like not its purest, but you can still do it. Like you are the actual boss of this, okay? But you can see how with this one, it just looks more sort of pure and concentrated, and I don't know, it just looks, this is the way we would teach it. This is the way you're allowed to do it whenever you want. Some of them are different colors, like this is red on top of blue. This one's just like a cool color on top of a cool color. So you get to decide all of that. And as we make up our little puddles for that one, we'll dip the tip of our brush in our water. Stuff like that is just so handy because you're not going to get this out of control in the first place. So I'm going to pick which colors I know I want to use. I'm going to get some sort of a red or a pink. And now do you see this puddle? That's hardly a puddle, but it does have to be wet enough that it will flow. So think of your favorite like gel ink pen, you know, it has to be able to flow. You don't want to, you're painting a line and it breaks. We don't want that. So this is the size. We'll clean our brush in between. I definitely want to get some dark blue in here because that's going to show up really well on top of other things. Tip of your brush. If anyone's dunking their whole brush in their water right now, I'm assuming you're going to get more water than you need. You check because you're the one to observe it, right? But keeping that under control will be helpful. I'm going to get some sort of a purple color because I'm trying to find the dark ones, like the naturally dark colors that will just sort of sit right on top easily. If I want to do, I can do yellow. I might do the mustard though, the one over here on the side. That's called yellow ochre. And I'm going to do its own little puddle for it. See how close it is to these oranges? I can add orange if I want. Remember, we can mix colors. We learned that on day 7. But we need these tiny puddles for it. Okay, let's see. I've got 4 different colors. I'm going to do a green as well, and then I'm going to call it good, I think. You can do as many as you want, though. That feels good to me. I got 5. And I will bring this in now. Okay, so all along the way, we have to make sure we're limiting our water. So you made tiny puddles, but now, you know, you have to use from tiny puddles and you don't want to be like adding a ton of water onto your brush. So be careful of that. Like if you clean out your brush right now, I would clean it, dry it on your towel, come back to your tiny puddle. This camera's bugging me, hold on. A little straighter, okay. And we're gonna begin. You could go left to right, but honestly, I just want to do whichever one I want to start with. So this big one that we began with, it's like little hearts, but it's little V's. If you look down here, it maybe looks more like hearts. It is very light on the tip of your brush. Swipe, 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 swipe. So we're doing horizontal rows and replenish your paint when you need to. But do you see? It's just swipe, swipe. And I love a good round brush for this. It gives you this perfect little shape. It's cute. You don't have to do this. You could do polka dots on the whole thing. You could do nothing on the whole thing. Like, let's say you love your color bleeds. Like, I kind of hate to be going on top of that one. It's so good. But I am. So you get to make those decisions. While I've got this green on my brush, though, I mean, why don't I do another one? So I think I'm going to come over here and just do dots. And dots are just that. First, let's notice these are imperfect. None of these are perfect circles, so we won't worry about that. Tiny dots. I like to try to space them equally if you can. Okay, awesome. Let's do one more with this one. I mean, I'm going to. You don't need to. But it's like, why not? I have a limited amount of colors anyway, so if I spread them out now, I know that I'm going to get some kind of balance, which I like. Okay, cleaned my brush out, dried it on my towel, so I know what I'm working with. That's going to help us with our control. And now I'm going to get into that pinkish sort of dark red color. I'll make sure my puddle is still good. And so if I'm adding any water to that puddle, remember, you're still doing it with just the tip of your brush. So we've done these little circles before, haven't we? I think we did them on day 6 when we did taping. And so it's just real light on the tip of your brush, kind of go one way and the other for these little circles. It's tricky. So very light on the tip of your brush. You can put your finger down to hold your paper. You can put a support pinky down on your painting hand. If they start to turn into circles, make them circles. We zig, we zag. We pivot. We roll with change. So I'll just make a couple of them dots like that. And while I've got this one on here, I'm going to get into this one. Yeah, why not? And I'll just do dots again. I love dots. They're probably my favorite of all. So if I ever need a filler, it's dots. I love them. Let's do something tiny over here. Let's do like this one at the same time. Now you do whichever one you want. You're just going around your paper right now. Everything's dry underneath, so it doesn't matter where you go. Okay. I don't know how much my camera shaking is bothering you guys, but now that I've mentioned it, if it's not already bothering you, it probably will. I think I need to set my tripod on a separate table. That feels difficult at the moment, so bear with me. Okay, I'm dipping the tip of my brush into my water only and refreshing my blue paint because it's such a tiny puddle. It dries up easily, and that makes sense. And now I'm going to go through and see these are little X's. Great, I'm going to put them over here, though. No, I'll put them here. Listen, we change our minds. That's okay. Okay, love it. Maybe the beginning of another one right here. So very light on the tip of your brush. Very little water. I love this. I think it's so cute. I'm going to do those V's over on this one on the top right, or the hearts, whatever you want to call them. I love this one. Now we got some polka dots coming, I think. I'm going to get into that sort of orangish yellow color I picked. And do, yeah, I'll do down here. Maybe bigger ones. I'm just going to like lean into my brush a little bit more so they're bigger. Cute. Let's try this color on top of the blue just to see what happens. Okay, and I'll zoom in for it a little bit as well. I'm just doing dots though. You can see it. You can't. It's helpful that this is a very concentrated yellow orange, right? Which helps it sort of with like the opacity, like, right? The darker it gets, easier to see. I like it. I'm leaving it. So, you know, you're always welcome to try things like that and just sort of see what happens. Now we've got 3 tiny ones left. I'm just going to kind of go through them. Since I really like how that turned out, I'll do it over here. A couple up top, and we're almost done. You can decide now if you want to use your ink pen and do like an outline over the top. I don't have an example of that today, but it's always kind of fun to see that. And I'm not going to do that on mine though, because I just really love how this focuses you on that soft background and the details on top. So this is mine today. I don't know if you can see that well. It feels dark in here to me. But that's what we got. I love it. This is wet on wet. Wet on wet is a technique that is absolutely fun to play with. I think it's like basically the coolest thing about watercolor because of its blending abilities, which for me can make acrylic painting more frustrating because you just don't get that same ability. You guys are rock stars. This is day 9, which means we are almost 1/3 of the way through. I would love to see your artwork on the Facebook page. That's it, I guess. We're done for the day. I'll see you guys tomorrow.